So on today for TFC Reviews, we have another Ford. We have a Ford Expedition. Stepping around the front here. This one's in a nice rental white. And I think it is so funny that Ford has managed to keep this coded door thing here on the side. I believe they call it Secure Code. But in reality, I think it's actually pretty useful if you do end up locking your keys in the car, or you just need to get in and you don't have your car keys handy with you. Stepping around back here, I do feel that the Ford Expedition and most Fords in general are pretty handsome looking vehicles actually, especially when designing a giant SUV. You don't have that much to work with, it's basically just a giant brick. But stepping around the front here, it's a pretty good looking vehicle. So go ahead and get those lights on a quick little flash. Let's get into it. Big step up here into our Ford Expedition, though quite not as big as it was in the, we had a Suburban earlier, and then a GMC Yukon Denali. Nice little startup graphics. Let's see what this Ford Expedition on this initial review is all about. Ford Expedition. So on this first take, I've actually rented one of these before, but it was the long wheelbase. This is a short wheelbase version. It's still a huge vehicle, but wanted to get a first impressions view of this version. It's an XLT, and honestly, I think I do prefer it to the GMs. I want to be a fan for GM, but so far, like I like the way they package things a little bit better here, like in the Fords. That's very like important. I think like when you are gonna end up living with a vehicle for a while, that you have to be comfortable, you know, in the vehicle. All the switches, all the knobs, all the driving position, all of that matters. You know, it doesn't really matter what the label is like on the outside. At the end of the day, it matters like if you're gonna be comfortable in it. Do you like the way it's, you know, easy access to, you know, roll up and down the windows, lock the doors, go through like all these different kinds of menus and settings that, you know, newer vehicles have today. So I think that's super important. And getting into the Ford, it's a little bit more familiar and a little bit more intuitive. I think it's designed a little bit better than the GMs. It looks a little kind of less, you know, say like slapped together. This is a little bit more intentional, I think, and as you follow along with me longer, intentional design, I think, is one of these things that will constantly come up and something that I'm very critical about, because at the end of the day, if you're not being intentional about it, then why the hell are you doing it? So initial impressions, not bad. It has this like leather-ish, maybe leather, I don't know these days, but it's not cloth, and it's not velour, it's not anything of a fabric. It is a leather-y type material. It probably is leather. I can't see them doing like a synthetic like Mercedes or something, or Volkswagen, but let's go and fire up real quick. It's so funny. They've had that startup ding since the early 2010s. I think like on the Fusions where it first came out. On that Explorer we rented. And it's so funny, actually, I'm going a little bit of tangent here, but when the SUV craze started to happen in the early 2000s, this one needs an oil change, Ford had like a naming language for all their SUVs. So you had like the Explorer that came out first, then the Expedition, which this is, came out in the late 90s. It was their first you know, real attempt since they had the full-size Bronco. Problem with the full-size Bronco is only a two-door. If you remember that really infamous O.J. Simpson, you know, chase, he was driving that white Ford Bronco, I think back in 95, 96. And then I think that first Expedition came out in like, I think 98. We'll throw it up there and for the exact year in that first version. And it's pretty much an instant success. So since then, they've been kind of always competing with the GM models, so the Tahoes and the Yukons, and we're kind of definitely not first when it came to like full-size 4-door SUVs, but they definitely came out with a very good competitor, I think. And so, again, first impressions, we'll do a longer video tomorrow. I do appreciate these are real gauges here. And one thing that I really just want to get the point across is that, like, you can still drive your vehicle even if this whole screen here goes out. You can still see how fast you're going. You can still see your RPMs. You can still, the vehicle can still function and get you to where you need to go, so you can get it serviced if you actually have a problem. The problem with that Cadillac or anything that's going to like a full screen is that you basically, you shouldn't be driving the vehicle if you don't know how fast you're going, but you have no information being given to you. You can probably, hopefully, you know, haven't been in one like where the full screen goes out, but you know, hopefully it still starts and stuff. But the more and more they integrate into like these screens here, the less, like the more you're relying on that screen to do all those functions and kind of putting all your eggs in that one big digital basket. I don't know if that's the best choice there. So again, lots of, you know, still physical buttons. All your climate control is still mainly a physical button. Your dual zone here, which is nice. You do have also a little bit of a, it'll tell your temperature up here, you know, but also down here, so it is redundant, which is nice too. So you can still see, you know, what temperature is, even though, you know, this big screen goes out, you still know that you're set at 71 degrees. If this little screen goes out, well, you need to go get that fixed. But it's still nice to have this big knob here, and still, I believe, I would hope that this is still attached to like some sort of mechanical something, so that even if this screen goes out, that screen goes out, you still have access to your climate control. So if it's the middle of winter, you can still get to somewhere, you know, with heat, or if it's, you know, the dog days of summer and it's 100 degrees out, you can still cool off a bit. So we'll not get into all of that today. Just for initial thoughts on this Ford Expedition. Go ahead and clear that. This is your main screen here. What's cool is, you can show that tomorrow in the video, but depending on your drive mode, it'll show which wheels have the traction. So I imagine if you're off-roading, it can show you which wheels are getting traction, and also indicate whether you're in four-wheel drive or you're in two-wheel drive, which this one right now, those settings are right there, which is super convenient. On the GMs, if you remember, it was over here, so a little bit out of the way. This makes it a little bit easier to, you know, access. So with that, we'll go and close that. Audio off. Here's all your climate. I don't know if that stays up there permanently. We'll play around with it more tomorrow. It's got heating steering wheel. That's nice. But one of my favorite things, and I'll have to research to see if it does come standard on Ford, but this is only an XLT, so it's not their, you know, super premium. I don't think they do the Eddie Bauer anymore, but like a titanium or a platinum edition or a King Ranch edition or anything like that. It's just regular old XLT. You get a map. It's so nice. You get a full map. You can zoom out here. It's very, very responsive. That in itself would make me give this a very hard look if I'm in the market for a full-size SUV, because it was ridiculous that on the GMs you have to subscribe to a map. Granted, all of these pretty much have Apple CarPlay now, but sometimes you don't want to hook up your phone. Sometimes your phone might be dead, so it's nice to still have a map backup option.
It was all good here.
We'll go ahead and mute that. But yeah, we'll go through all this. I don't think it has adaptive cruise control, so we'll rant on that tomorrow. But so far, I think this is going to be a good review for this Ford Expedition, and excited to see. And I think actually might have some like ambient lighting, which is fun. It is a little dark. Let's see if we can play with that real quick. Settings. Let's see how intuitive this is. Vehicle maybe. Okay. Ambient lighting. So pretty intuitive. I swear I did not play around with it. So brightness. So maybe it's just the brightness on it, but I don't know if you can change the color or not. Looks like you can just change the brightness. If I turn it off, off, on, off, on. So it's intuitive, not very customizable, not very configurable, but you know, that's okay. So anyway, I wanted to show you that real quick since it is getting a little dark out, and then we will continue this tomorrow when we get it out on the road and we get a full review here on this Ford Expedition. See you tomorrow.